So Tom Brady is having kind of a roller coaster of a season on and off the field, and he tried to make people understand what the football season was like. So I'm fascinated to get your guys' reaction to this. This was Tom Brady on the Let's Go podcast talking with Jim Gray about how he looks at the season, especially 6 weeks in when it's been a little bit up and down.
I almost look at like a football season like you're going away on deployment in the military.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, here I go again. And there's only one way to do it. And I think, Jim, we've talked from time to time just about how do you enjoy the certain moments of it. And the reality is you can really only be authentic to yourself, right? Mm-hmm. Whatever you may say, oh, man, I want to, make sure I spend a little more time doing this, during the season.
Yeah.
The reality is when it comes down to it, your competitiveness takes over. And as much as you want to have this playful balance with the work balance, you're going to end up doing exactly what you've always done, which is why you are who you are.
So he's comparing it to deployment. Now, Ben Roethlisberger also said that Tom Brady looked like he was miserable out there, not enjoying the experience against the Pittsburgh Steelers. It does feel like it's a lot of work for Brady this year. Like, for a guy who loves playing and wants to keep playing, just from the outside, it does feel like he's – I don't know if it's that he's not happy or that there is other stuff going off the field. Who cares? None of my business. But it does feel like it's a different Tom Brady than we've seen in years past, just from the outside perspective. Does it not, or are you guys on the same page?
You don't want to jump in on that?
I'm just – I don't know. I think we're making a big deal about it, honestly. Like, I don't know that we've seen anything different outside the fact that it hasn't been as smooth of a start as we thought. And there's some personal stuff going on, but if you didn't know there was personal stuff going on, you go back to those New England days, they struggle for the first quarter of the season sometimes. That's always how it's been. They find their identity, and then they usually hit their stride. This year, the difference was we thought the division would be weak. They're playing, and they dominate it. And it hasn't been the case. But they've also battled injuries. They've battled a lot of things. And obviously, he's got other stuff off the field. So I don't know. I tend not to make as big of a deal about it only because what he said is true to a degree. Once the season starts, you don't plan on anything. You're living in that tunnel vision. Like, you live week to week. Like, I still, doing broadcasting, live week to week. My wife, my mom, people were calling me up, hey, what about this? I'm like, yeah, I can't do it. Can't do it. I don't know what's going to be asked of me week to week. And so it's just it's too hard to plan out that stuff. Like, I know where I'll be sometimes. I know what I'll be doing. I know my process of preparing. But even in broadcasting, as it used to be with football, like during the week, like I just like Liner gets mad at me all the time. He'll try to FaceTime me during the week. I'm like, watch the film, bro. Like, sorry, like I've got stuff I'm doing. And so I don't know. I've always kind of related to that because that's how it is. It's football season. Like, you're kind of like going away to train to prepare for that match, that boxing match, or you're going away to prepare for something else. So I don't know. I think we sensationalize stuff just because we know more about Tom Brady's personal life, given everything that's transpired.
I was just more or less, from my perspective, like, it's not – football season is not like deployment. It's not even close, not even comparable. And it, I mean, I get it. You're going on a journey and you have to be focused in on what you have to do for the season. But make no mistake about it. When you're on deployment, when you're deployed, you're staying on a base. You're staying, if at best, you might be in a hotel. At worst, you might be staying in the woods, right? Like, so, and you're there. You don't see your family. You don't. There is an end to your work day, but some days there are no ends to your work day. So that's a little bit over dramatized to say football season is like deployment. You have not been deployed. You're playing football. I would start there. I know we make a lot of comparisons to military because military is, in a lot of ways, football is the closest thing in sports to me, in athletics that signifies or resembles, military. You have, you got to have a leader, you got to have strategy, you got to execute, you got to, whatever it may be, deploying players from the sideline into the game. That would be deploying, and But for me, I think that Tom Brady is, for what it's worth, if you're paying attention, Tom Brady is a person just like anyone else. And sometimes I enjoy hearing guys that are as successful as Tom Brady just be a human. Sometimes that's just it's overlooked because we admire or we hold them.
Well, because he becomes relatable. Like he's the
100%.
most unrelatable person in football until moments like this.
There you go. And so for me, that's my takeaway is it's like it feels if I'm looking at it from a fan's perspective, this is a moment where you're like, man, like, all right, Tom, like yeah, I get that. I feel that. Like I can understand that. So to me, I think these moments, if they do bounce back from this 3-loss start or 3-win start, 3-3, right? I believe.
Yeah.
If they do bounce back from it and they play well, I think people, as if you couldn't admire him or like him even more than what you do now, you know, he's fallen under some criticism because of the way he was animated talking to his lineman. Screw you, right? Like, if you think that him being a leader is inappropriate and like, oh, he was at a personal event and then he shows up and he's chewing out, like, shut up. Like get like you're going into parameters where it's like either watch it and admire it for what it is or detach from it. But to try to capitalize off of his, you know, what you would consider to be missteps or whatever it may be. I mean, we live in a culture that's like that, but he's just not one of those guys where that's, to me, like, why is it worth doing that? Like, let's just play it out. Let's see how it plays out, and let's watch what Tom does. And if it ends well, great. If it doesn't end well, it doesn't change who Tom Brady is. It really does not. It does not change what Tom Brady has accomplished if they don't some way turn this around during the course of the season. It doesn't. I think there's a lot more questions that start to arise, and that's more about Tampa Bay than I think it is about Tom Brady.